A 14-year-old boy in Texas charged with murder after investigators say a prank led to a deadly car crash. Casey Stiegel is live in Dallas. And Casey, tell us more about this prank.
Well, Trace, a prank that wasn't so funny, clearly, and police say the teen driver who caused this whole thing was throwing eggs at random cars with his friends in the moments leading up to this deadly accident, and they say they believe that is what set off this entire deadly chain of events. In fact, surveillance tape from nearby businesses now paint a clearer picture. It shows the exact moment that 14-year-olds sped through an intersection, running a red light in broad daylight and slamming into Sylvia Zavala's truck, killing her instantly. But the video also shows a yellow car, you see there, running the red light as well, apparently in hot pursuit of the teens at the time. Well, they told deputies that they were trying to get away from that car because the driver showed them a gun and started following them. Moments after the crash, though, you can see that yellow car fleeing and speeding away from the scene. Now, that driver was eventually located and is said to be cooperating with authorities. Prosecutors say it's entirely possible that he could be charged with failure to stop and render aid, resulting in a death, which is a felony if a grand jury indicts him on it. Trace.
Yeah, just a gruesome crash. We're hearing now from the victim's family, Casey?
That's right, and it's just heartbreaking. They describe a woman who lived each day to the fullest. She lived down in South Texas, a 45-year-old single mother, and just so happened to be up in the Houston area to ring in 2019 with her family. And they say that she was just out running a few errands at the time of the accident. Authorities say this is unfortunately a case of Sylvia Zavala just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And now her family, her daughter, they all want justice. Listen.
He did what he did, and well, he took my mother's life, so he has to pay for what happened.
As for that 14-year-old unlicensed driver, he has suffered a broken ankle in the crash, was taken to the hospital, and has been arrested, now in detention at a juvenile detention facility, formally charged with murder now. Trace.
Casey Stiegel live for us in Dallas. Casey, thank you. Let's bring in Bob Bianchi. He's a defense attorney and former prosecutor. And Bob, the daughter of the victim is right. I mean, he did what he did, and somebody has to be held accountable for this.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a prosecutor who did homicide work for many years. This is the kind of case where you need to send deterrence. This issue of teenagers and people driving recklessly and causing death is a rampant epidemic throughout the country. But I will note this. There is an odd twist to this case because the defense for these kids is that they were trying to escape from somebody who was chasing them and had a gun. And certainly a defense attorney is going to look at that and say it's a defense of necessity because these kids were trying to get away from the adult. Listen, kids will be kids. They did a horrible, horrific thing, resulted in his death. But this adult, I think he's looking at some serious time here.
Well, so if you're an adult and somebody throws an egg at your car, you're not allowed to chase them? Is that what you're saying here? Or is it the gun? What's the factor that makes this so nefarious for this guy who was chasing?
Well, you know, listen, Trace, what we try to tell people is it's not vigilante-style justice. You call 911. You can't be driving recklessly down the road because somebody threw an egg at your car, causing them and you to go through a red light. And, of course, the gun is an added element of a problem for him, in addition to the law that was just cited by the reporter, that failure to stop where there is a death is a third-degree felony in Texas. You could face up to 10 years just on that alone.
Yeah, and let's just talk about the 14-year-old. I mean, look, we know that he's not going to get life in prison. This is not going to be one of those kinds of cases, even though he's charged with murder. What is he facing here, Bob? And is this one of those things where they say, look, we have to charge him with something because the optics, this is just a bad-looking incident, or what's exactly going on here?
Great question, Trace. Listen, this is Texas. Texas does not play. They would have typically charged somebody with manslaughter for this case, but they charged them with murder. Murder is felony murder. That is during the commission of a felony. That is unauthorized use of that motor vehicle. A death results. So I'm thinking that they're doing that because they're looking at the potential of waiving this case up to the adult courts to try him as an adult, because that would be the only charge they would be able to do that with in this particular case. And that explains why they charge felony murder as opposed to the typical manslaughter case.
Very quickly, Bob, down the road, who's getting more time here? The kid who was actually driving the car or the guy who was chasing the kid driving the car?
Well, you know, with juveniles, the general rules, you try to look towards rehabilitation unless they get waived up as an adult. I got to be honest with you, Trace, at first blush, the kids look really bad. But if they can prove that they were being pursued by this guy and this guy had a gun, I think the adult is going to be looking at more time. As a prosecutor who's done these cases, I'm looking at him as the primary cause as to why these kids fled through that red light. At least that will be the kid's defense.
Yeah, well, the victim, you know, there's got to be some accountability for the victim as well. Bob Bianchi, good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
You got it, Trace. Thanks.